Welcome everybody. Welcome back. Today we have another build video for you. Now, not just a regular build video, it's actually going to be the first of a series of mine that I want to start. I want to start a series that involves build videos because I like making these. You guys already know I've talked about in the past how these are fun for me. But I don't want to just make it any boring regular build video that a lot of other YouTubers do where it's the most meta, most broken stuff. I kind of want to take a different approach at it and just take the most commonly or like unused exotics that a lot of the community would perceive as being trash and kind of make a build for them that make it where the exotic actually is really good and shines. The first weapon that we're going to do this with is the Devil's Ruin. Obviously you saw by the title, I was actually able to make a build for this that makes the Devil Ruin actually really good, surprisingly. Now, trust me guys, I want you to know this took a lot of time. I tried multiple builds. I literally everything in the book I tried just to see, like, at its strongest, what would the Devil's Ruin be able to do. So if you like and enjoy the video, please hit that like button. Also remember subscribing if you want to see more of these. I'm gonna try to make this a weekly series, so if you want to see a build with your favorite exotic that not a lot of people like to use, please leave a comment down below. And yeah, that's enough. Let's get started with the build. So yeah, this is the build. First off, I just want to show you guys everything that the build has, just so a lot of you guys can decide if you want to finish watching the video or not. But basically, a quick rundown is it's a hunter running stasis. Your weapons do not matter, which is nice because this build gives a lot of freedom. As long as you have Devil's Ruin, you could literally use whatever you want here. I just have a sniper and a rocket just for fun. And mods are surprise attack, elemental charge, protective light, elemental shards, supercharge, and the exotic of choice is Mechanier's Trick Sleeve. Now this is a hunter build, but to trust me, you can kind of replicate this and duplicate it on all the both other classes, Titan and Warlock. The only reason I chose hunter is because of the Mechanier's Trick Sleeve, which is basically a hunter specific exotic that just makes sidearms insane. But yeah, that's basically a whole overview of the build. Let me now get into the specifics on why I chose what I did. Basically give you the math on why everything makes the Devil's Ruin just basically reach its full capacity of how good it is. So yeah, let's get into it. So obviously, in order to understand how the build works, you need to understand how the Devil's Ruin works. So to start with that, it comes with the intrinsic trait called Close the Gap. Variable trigger, press and release to fire individual shots, or you can hold to charge up a high-powered, unstoppable stunning laser. Strong against unstoppable champions. Basically what this means is, if you look in the gameplay, it just means you can shoot it like a regular sidearm, just single fire, or when you hold your fire button, hold your trigger, it charges up and shoots a high power ass laser, almost like a fusion rifle / trace rifle mix. Now this gun also has a second like exotic perk. It's called Pyrogenesis. Fully charging the laser refills the magazine from reserves. Now that can kind of sound confusing, but in the gameplay, all it does is basically whenever you shoot that high charged laser, it just refills the mag to 15 before the laser goes off. So basically it means no matter how much ammo you have in the clip, when you shoot the laser, you are getting the full length, the full power of that laser. So the next big thing is the Mechanier's Trick Sleeve. The reason why we're even doing this on a hunter in general. And what these exotic arms do, which I'm sure honestly none of you have ever used before. These are probably one of the most unused exotics except for a build like this. But it comes with the exotic perk called Spring Loaded Mounting. Increases sidearm ready and reload speed. While you're critically wounded, swapping to a sidearm increases its damage. So first things first, it increases sidearm ready and reload speed. So I managed to pull a clip together of me basically swapping weapons over and over again and then also reloading with the Mechanier's Trick Sleeves. So I'm gonna let that play real quick. So yeah, as you can see, these things help tremendously. I don't have the exact stats on how much faster you actually reload and all that stuff and how much faster you swap, but it is 100% noticeable. So that is why we're doing this on a hunter, because if you go to another class, that reload speed is really gonna get you. Now the second part of this exotic perk is when you're critically wounded, which just means whenever you lose your shield, or if you look at your health bar whenever it hits the red part, swapping to a sidearm increases its damage. So in the gameplay, as you can see, I tested this out on a Lost Sector boss. I think the community has a name for this boss. I don't know it. I know the ogre was Greg. I don't know what this one is. But as you can see, the base damage for the Devil's Ruin, I only did damage on charge shots. I only tested charge shots. So the base damage was 3,793. Now, as you can see, when I go to damage him next, I try to make sure I get red bar, swap to the sidearm, and then this increases its damage to 7,585, which, by the way, is a 100% increase. Basically just means it doubles your damage. So whenever you're wounded, switch to your sidearm, boom, double damage, just like that, until you are no longer red bar. Okay, so that's basically the exotics. Now I need to get into the mods we're using and also why we're using stasis. So first of all, this is a charge with light build. So let me explain basically how we're becoming charged with light, and then I'll explain what that charge with light does. So the main way we're gonna do it is by using elemental charge combined with elemental shards. Elemental shards makes it where stasis shards count as stasis elemental wells for you. The way you create stasis shards is by using, obviously, your Revenant, your stasis subclass, and then using the aspect called Grim Harvest, which basically means killing anybody affected by stasis, which includes stasis abilities and stuff, creates these shards on the ground. In terms of fragments, you can honestly use whatever you want, except I do not recommend the one that makes shards track to you. I'll get into a reason later as to why I don't really think that's good for this build, but instead, other than that, you can use whatever you want. I like shards, fissures, and chains. We are then combining this with elemental charge, which makes it where you become charged with light by picking up an elemental well. If the elemental well's element type matches your subclass, you gain 2 stacks of charge with light, which, since we're creating stasis shards, which technically are stasis wells, which we are running a stasis subclass, it will count as 2 stacks. So basically, the way this works gameplay wise is, as you can see, anytime I get a kill with my shurikens or my shatter dive, it'll then create a little floating shard thing. I don't really know how to describe it, but it's fairly noticeable that it's there. You just run to that, pick it up, and you'll get a charge with light ×2. Now, a pro tip is if you create a bunch of shards, you do not want to grab them all at once, because once you grab one, you got about, I believe it's a 5-second cooldown to when you become charged with light again for grabbing another. So the way I would always do it, grab one, just fight more enemies, wait about 5 seconds, and go back and grab the other ones, wait another 5 seconds. So that way you're constantly stacking your charge with light and not wasting these elemental shards. Now that's how you become charged with light. I now need to explain basically what becoming charged with light does for us. So first things first is protective light, which honestly is arguably the greatest mod in the entire game. What this does is, while charged with light, you gain significant damage resistance against combatants when your shields are destroyed. This effect consumes all stacks of charge with light, and the more stacks consumed, the longer the damage resistance lasts. So in the gameplay, as you can see, once I'm charged with light, whenever I get to red bar, I then take, I believe it's 50% damage reduction. So anybody hitting me is doing 50% less than what they normally would. As you can see, it basically just means once you're red bar, you're almost invincible, I guess. You're not actually, but once you get red bar, you'll be able to escape with your life because of this mod. That's just how broken it is. Everyone should use it on Grandmasters, Master Vogue, all this stuff. Now, the real reason that we're using protective light isn't because it's, really good for just staying alive. It's because of the Mechaneer's Trick Sleeve's other exotic perk, basically, which makes it where when you're red bar, you deal more damage. So this makes it where we can safely get to red bar and not basically be one shot. It makes it where we get that double damage from the Mechaneer's Trick Sleeves for longer, or it's safer. It makes it where getting red bar isn't as dangerous as it would be, which is why protective light is as good as it is when combined with Mechaneer's Trick Sleeves. Now, the last and final mod is surprise attack. Basically what this does is, while charged with light, reloading or readying a sidearm will consume all stacks of charge with light and convert them into stacks of a major damage buff, which are depleted as you damage combatants with that sidearm. Now, I know that's a lot of words and might sound confusing, but basically what it means is when you're charged with light, anytime you reload or pull out your sidearm, it'll turn that charge with light into basically powerful, more damage ammo. So every stack of charge with light gives you 5 ammo that does more damage. The ammo itself will only go away as well whenever you hit an enemy. So if you look on the left side of my screen where my buffs are, I have like a certain amount of bullets. I can shoot a wall, I can miss, I can do whatever, and it won't go away. It'll only go away when I hit enemies, which is insanely nice. I'm so glad Bungie Bungie put that in there, because it just makes it where you're never wasting that damage boost. Now, I actually did went and test the damage as well. So remember, the base damage on this Lost Sector boss was 3,793. Now, when I combine Surprise Attack with my Devil's Ruin, it then buffs the damage to 5,120, which is a 35% increase. It's not the craziest increase, but as long as you're becoming charged with light nonstop, that is a damage boost that you should have the entire time using Devil's Ruin. Now, you may be thinking, well, the Surprise Attack combined with the Trick Sleeves and give it like a huge 35% increase? Unfortunately, it doesn't. I really wish it did. It would make this thing even more powerful. It would probably do around like 10,000 per shot on this Lost Sector boss, which would just absolutely melt it. But Bungie was smart and was thinking ahead that it's probably safe not to allow these two to stack. Now, another mod we're running is Supercharged. It's nothing really that crazy. It just makes it where you have 2 additional stacks of Charge with Light. So instead of a max of ×2, we are at a max of ×4. This is just really helpful because if you use Protective Light, it once again makes it last longer. Or when you're using Surprise Attack, you get an extra 10 shots. So it just basically just adds like a passive boost to Protective Light and Surprise Attack. So yeah, that's the entire build. That's the breakdown on how everything works and why I chose it all. I basically now just want to talk about my review on the build and how practical it actually is in gameplay. Because there's a lot of builds out there that are really good, but you basically have to go out of your way to make sure you're doing specific things for the build to work in general, which a lot of times isn't the easiest thing to do, especially on high-end content. So with this build, the only really 2 things you need to make sure you're doing is obviously get your stasis ability kills, which isn't hard to do considering you get your, shurikens and grenade back really fast, and they're actually really deadly. So as long as you're doing that, grabbing those shards, then the only hard thing that you need to remember basically is whenever you're red bar, remember to switch off of your Devil's Ruin and then switch back for that double damage, because you only get that double damage when you ready a sidearm. So you have to switch off and switch back into it. That is the only hard thing you have to remember. But other than that, everything in this build is passive. It'll just happen naturally. You don't have to go out of your way to get anything, which is really nice. Now, for a high-end content, this build actually isn't bad at all. I know a lot of people like to clown the Devil's Ruin, but the Devil's Ruin does come with Unstoppable already built in. And then since we're using Stasis, you can combine it with the class mod that makes it where your Stasis abilities stun overloads. And then as your primary, run something like an AR. So therefore, you have Unstop, Anti-Barrier, and Overload. Like I said, this build is probably going to be really nice for Lost Sectors, maybe Grandmasters here and there, depending on what the Grandmaster is. It's not bad. Like I said, a lot of builds, you can make any build and it'd be good, and just regular strikes and stuff, and any gun will work. So a lot of builds need to be made to work in high-end content, which I think this one does. Now, since this is a series, something I want to do as I end the video is basically give a total ranking on the build, so that when I have basically more builds in the future, I can kind of compare them. So obviously right now this is the first build, so I can't compare it to anything else, but on a scale of 1 to 10, I will have to give this build a solid 8.2. Now, where does that stack up against its other exotics and builds? We don't know. Well, I'll know in a couple of videos. But yeah, that's gonna be it. That is the Devil's Ruin. Once again, if you don't have this gun, I believe it's at the Lost Archive of Light or whatever that exotic archive is in the tower. I don't know how expensive it is. I haven't even checked that thing out. But yeah, if you want it, that's where you can get it. And once again, yeah, if you guys enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe, and then also comment down below what other exotics you want me to make builds on. Like I said, these take a long time, but I have a lot of fun with them, and I'm sure you guys enjoy them too. I've gotten a lot of love and support on my other 2 build videos, but that's gonna be enough for me. And as always, if you made it this far, I love your face, and all you fine ladies and gentlemen, have a great rest of your day.